Hello, my creative friends. This is Heather North from heatherscreativeblessings.com and the StampNation Dream Team, here with part one of a two-part card series. It got a little bit long, so you get to see part one, the Blendabilities. The rest will be up on StampNation. I took Stampin' Up's By the Seashore stamp set and some masking paper from Inka Dinka Doo. This masking paper is a low tack, so it won't ruin your paper or your cardstock underneath, and it has removable backing. I'm taking Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and I'm just going to stamp my image right on that piece of masking paper. Now I'm going to fussy cut my sand dollar out. I just cut a little bit away so it's easier to manage, and then I'm going to cut right inside that little black line to create my mask. And I'm going to do this for all of the images that I'll be using with my Blendabilities today. The squares I'm using have been cut to 1 3/4 inches, 1 3/4 inches square. And again, I'm using Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and I'm going to stamp all of my images onto these little squares. Now I can go back and grab the masks. I like to store my masks in the same DVD case as I store my stamps, or whatever way I'm storing my stamps. I'll store my masks with them so that I have them to use again. And I'm just carefully lining that up with my stamped image. I have some Soft Sky ink from Stampin' Up, and this is a blending tool by Ranger. I just love these little blending tools. I'm going to repeat this process with my next seashell. Just place the mask right over and use my blending tool to blend in the Soft Sky ink. Now I'm going to take my Lost Lagoon ink. You could use a new ink blender pad thing, but it's just a darker shade of the color I already used, so I'm going to go ahead and use it again and add some shadow just to the outside edges. I wanted some waves in my sea, so I pulled out this set. It's called Chalk Lines by Stampin' Up. It's a photopolymer set. What I like to do is line up my stamp set on my grid mat so I'm sure that the lines are straight. And then I use my Fisker stamp press and line those up with the lines on my grid mat. I decided to stamp off twice. You can see that both seashells are on the same line at the bottom, so they're straight on the same line, and then I stamped over both of them, making sure that I pressed around the image that was masked to get as close as I could. And here I am stamping off twice again, lining it up. I can see right through with that photopolymer, so I can line up the waves pretty close. When using big stamps like these chalk lines, I like to use just a baby wipe and clean it up. And two, if I get some ink on the Fisker stamp press itself, the ink will come right up with that baby wipe. And then I just stamp off to the side to make sure it's not wet if I'm going to use it again. I peeled off my masks at a little bit of an angle, and as I said before, I store them in the same packaging with the stamp set that I'm using so that I can use them next time. To color my seashell, I'm using Coastal Cabana Blendabilities. I started with my lightest color and just did a wash all over that seashell. Here's a little tip for getting that lid on perfectly every time. Lay your lid on the table and your marker on the table and push them together. So easy. Now I have the darkest color of the Coastal Cabana Blendabilities. I'm tracing that inner shell, and then I'm going to fill in the lines of the seashell. It's really cool when you have stamps that make it easy to color, and I look for those, especially when you're starting out. So the darker color in between all these lines, and if you can't tell what those lines are, well, just make it up. This is the medium color, and I'm going to go in and just add some more shadow around that inner curve and the outer curve. I want to give my seashell some dimension. And then I'm going to go over those lines that I already colored with the darkest. Again, this is the medium I'm using. And now I've grabbed my darkest color, and I'm just deepening those shadows in a couple of places. Very light touch. Then I went back to my lightest color, and I pulled the shadows out just a bit towards the center, leaving the center the lightest, not adding any color to the very center. I used my color lifter to remove a little bit of the boo-boo that I made, and then I took my light color and just added a little wavy line, and it kind of gets lost in the background. I didn't spend a lot of time fixing that. For my second shell, I did the same thing. I started with the lightest color and colored the entire shell, and then I'm adding some shadows with my medium color around the outside and inside. I added a little more color than I wanted, but I'll try and fix that later. Here I have my darkest color, and again adding where I want the shadows and filling in those lines of the seashell. Then I'm going to come in with my lightest color in the center and all the way around, kind of blend it together. And I'm going to take my color lifter and remove some of the color. It kind of gives it some highlight, and as it dries it removes even more. This was a really fun experiment, and I love how it turned out. I took my little square, put it on my Stampin' scrub, and then I just squirted it with some water in that water bottle a couple of times. Then I took my Lost Lagoon ink. I inked up one of the splatters from Gorgeous Grunge stamp set by Stampin' Up. I'm going to stamp off a couple times and then stamp a couple of times on my image, and it looks kind of like water spots or bubbles in the water. I'm going to do it again with the second piece. It's kind of off to the side, but I just sprayed it with water, stamp off, and then stamp a couple of times over the image. If you are new to Blendabilities or Copics, I highly recommend just stamping some images and playing with the coloring. If you're new to Blendabilities or Copics, I highly recommend just stamping out some images and practicing your coloring. If you would like to see how I colored those sand images, hop on over to StampNation and check out the StampNation Beach Vacation Day 6. Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you find some time today to get a little bit creative and hopefully do a little coloring. Bye!